The beginning of the story takes place in the late 1980s, early 90s in the New York City metroplex, specifically New Rochelle, where Hannah lives with her family, and in the Bronx, where her grandparents live. New Rochelle is in the southeastern portion of the state, right outside Manhattan. The Temple of Israel is located in New Rochelle and highlights the significant Jewish influence within the area. The temple's objectives included to foster, encourage, promote, induce, and advance in the study of Hebrew language and its literature, and eventually turned into a synagogue. In addition, after World War I, the Jewish population escalated in New Rochelle. So it makes sense that Yolan would choose to use New Rochelle as her setting since it holds significant Jewish heritage. However, after the first several chapters, there is a shift in the setting, and Hannah is transported into 1942 Poland as Shia. Poland is located in Europe and borders several different countries, including Ukraine, Russia, Slovakia, Germany, and the Czech Republic. Germany invaded Poland in 1939, just a few years before our story takes place. We see this shift in time periods when Shia is at her uncle's wedding and the Nazis show up. Shia cries out desperately, "They're not wedding guests, they're Nazis. Nazis, do you understand? They kill people. They will kill Jews, hundreds of them, thousands of them, 6 million of them. I know. Don't ask me how I know, I just do." From the wedding, they travel in boxcars to a concentration camp. Most of the story takes place in the concentration camp. Although we know concentration camps were very real, this specific concentration camp was inauthentic in its actual existence. But in the author's note, Yolan clarifies that this setting was based off of a mixture of camps that actually did exist, such as Auschwitz, Treblinka, Chelmno, and Sobibor.
In a dawn attack on September 1st, 1939, German forces crossed into Poland. From the beginning, civilians were among those targeted for destruction. It was clear the nature of this conflict would surpass in cruelty anything in the grim history of war. Hitler stated his goals clearly. The aim is not the arrival at a certain line, but the annihilation of living forces. Kill Poles without mercy, all men, women, and children of Polish descent or language. Only in this way can we obtain the living space we need. All Poles will disappear from the world. It is essential that the great German people should consider it as its major task to destroy all Poles. Fighting alone against the greatest military power of the time, Poland was suddenly attacked by the Soviet Union on the east. Against these two mighty dictatorships, the Poles were forced to capitulate on October 5th, 1939. Hitler and Stalin divided the prostrate country between them, and everything we know as human rights was suspended for the people of Poland. In the German-occupied zone, this meant mass arrests, deportations to concentration camps, slavery, and mass executions. Notices listing names of the executed and threats of reprisal for resistance were widely posted. The German occupying forces began segregating the Jewish from the Christian population, ultimately setting up walled-in ghettos where Jews were forced to live in appalling misery. Proclamations of a death sentence for Jews found outside ghetto walls, and for Polish Christians offering any form of assistance, were posted throughout the so-called Aryan areas. Not only individuals, but entire Christian families and sometimes neighbors were summarily executed for helping Jews. Their names were publicized to deter others. In the ghettos, death through starvation, disease, and random murder became common. Then, in 1942, the Germans implemented a frightening new policy: the wholesale deportation of Jews and their extermination in gas chambers. These were the conditions under which Zhegota was born.
In the beginning of the novel, we see Hannah and her family celebrating Passover. Passover is an 8-day celebration in the beginning of spring during the Hebrew month Nisan, April in the United States. In the novel, Passover happened to have fallen on Good Friday, while Hannah and her family celebrated. How could you forget Hannah, especially this year when Passover falls on the same day as Easter? This holiday is named Passover because of the time God passed over Jewish homes when killing the Egyptians' firstborn. Passover is practiced in order to commemorate the emancipation of the Israelites from slavery in ancient Egypt. Hannah mentioned in the novel that her grandpa talked during the celebration about the plagues and the exodus from Egypt, just like every other year. Her grandfather droned on and on about the plagues and the exodus from Egypt. The celebration is highlighted by the cedar meals that involve 4 cups of wine to celebrate freedom, eating matzah, flatbread, and bitter herbs to acknowledge the bitter slavery the Israelites endured and retelling the story of the Exodus. During Passover, the participants must obey the Haggadah. The Haggadah is the fulfillment of the biblical obligation to recount to our children the story of the Exodus on the night of the Passover. It begins with a child asking the traditional 4 questions read from the Haggadah. I can't remember all 4 questions. Aaron almost shouted the last word. You don't have to remember them. Hannah's patience was wearing thin. You're supposed to read them from the Haggadah. In the book, Hannah's brother, being the youngest, is given the privilege to ask the questions. These 4 questions are essential to the Seder. The 4 questions are: 1. On all nights of the year, we do not need to dip even once, but on Passover night, we dip twice. The first time we dip karpas in salt water, and the second time bitter herbs in haroset paste. 2. On all nights of the year, we eat hametz or matzah, but on Passover night, we only eat matzah. 3. On all nights of the year, we eat various vegetables, but on Passover night, we eat bitter vegetables. 4. On all nights of the year, we eat either sitting upright or reclining, but on Passover night, we all eat while reclining. In the book, the order in which Passover is celebrated is not the traditional order that is usually followed. Seder means order. The Seder wasn't even in the right order, not like they taught in Sunday school. For example, Aaron asked the 3rd question, on all other nights we eat vegetables and herbs of all kinds. Why on this night do we eat bitter herbs especially? As the 2nd question, on all other nights we eat vegetables and herbs of all kinds. Why on this night do we eat bitter herbs especially? During Seder, wine is poured to the people attending. Elijah's cup is the 5th wine cup poured during Passover. In the novel, everyone above the age of 13 received a cup with wine. After a while, Hannah's uncle brought up the cup of Elijah and passed it around so everyone could pour in wine from their own cup. Uncle Sam handed around the large crystal-cut goblet, Elijah's cup. Everyone poured a little bit of wine from their own glass into it. Elijah's cup is meant to be left untouched until Seder is over and poured back into the bottle in honor of Elijah, who, according to tradition, will arrive one day as an unknown guest to herald the advent of the Messiah. Open the door to Elijah, child, and invite him in with an open heart. Hannah, being the one to have poured the most wine into the goblet, was given the right to open the door for Elijah and welcome him in.
Passover is a very, very important holiday. Even though I had said there aren't evening services at the temple, everyone is supposed to celebrate at your home with friends, read from the Haggadah, which is the story. There are Saturday morning services at the beginning of the week and at the end of the week to mark the holiday. It's a very, very important holiday. We have traditional food, which is always important with the Jewish holidays. We don't eat bread for this whole week during Passover. So we have, the matzah balls, and we have matzah on the table. And then we start off with going through the story and singing and talking about when we left Egypt. So this is like the story, and we just retell it every single year. It's a time when you go through the story and the youngest person at the table asks the questions, you know, why is this night different than every other night? And they chant it in Hebrew. So my daughter is now, she's the youngest at the table, so I told her she has to start working with her nephew, my grandson, and have him start doing it, because until he sits at the table with us and knows the questions, she's the youngest at the table, so she's the one who chants the 4 questions. But the youngest of the silent. Big day for families and friends, and you know, when your family lives all over the place, your friends become your family, so that's what's so nice. It's a happy holiday.
In the book, Yolen uses Yiddish words which depict the importance of the language in Jewish pop culture. An example of Yiddish terminology is the klezmer band, which comes to Shaya's uncle's wedding. A klezmer band plays dance tunes and instrumental music for weddings and special occasions. In the book, a Yiddish song that is mentioned is the Shirel. The Shirel is a wedding song that Shaya's aunt claims to hate. Who asked you to get married? Who asked you to be buried alive? You know that no one forced you. You took this madness on yourself. I always hated that song. Another example of Yolen's use of Yiddish language is Sul, a Jewish synagogue. We will be married, Phage. Your father will marry us, maybe not here, in your shul, maybe not even under a wedding canopy. The wedding canopy, or kuppah in Yiddish, is a symbol of the home to be built and shared by the couple. It is open on all sides, just as Abraham and Sarah had their tent open all sides to welcome people in unconditional hospitality.
What do you feel the place of Yiddish is within broader culture?
Broader Jewish culture, or even more broadly?
Either.
In terms of Jewish culture, I mean, I think what's obvious to me is that Yiddish has become a kind of home for people, young people, who are politically left-leaning, and you know, they are kind of identify with a radical past. Not that Yiddish was only spoken by radicals. You know, of course, all Jews in Eastern Europe at one point spoke Yiddish, no matter their politics. But I think there is this association, and probably it's got to do with a kind of dichotomy, or even a simplistic view of Jewish history, in which, you know, Zionism is associated with Hebrew, and kind of diasporic Jewish thought is associated with Yiddish. And so people who kind of associate themselves, you know, a lot of people, I think, young people more and more identify with this notion of Deutschheit in various ways. And so Yiddish is a kind of way into that. It's also a way into a sort of hard secular Jewish culture, you know, with a body of literature that exists, with folklore, with songs. So I think, you know, in broader Jewish culture, it's a way for people to connect with Jewish life and Jewish history in a way that they perhaps haven't before, and a way to give them, you know, some hard Jewish culture, I guess. And that's not to disparage other forms of Jewishness or Jewish life, but it's one way into the sort of broad tapestry. In terms of general life, I mean, in America, what's clear to me is that, you know, Yiddish has kind of penetrated popular culture.
Since most of the plot is set in 1942 Poland, the major historical event that encompasses the storyline is the Holocaust. Within this event are other historically authentic incidents. Yolen reveals many horrible evils that occurred in concentration camps, such as the transportation to the camps, shaving people's hair, the tattooing of numbers, and the method of choosing which victims to kill.
It's 6 million Jews. Don't ask me how I know, I just do.
What is this? Take it off!
Let me help
Du
you.
take it out, Basavisa! Mach weiter! Judenschweine! Lass los! Faster! Go now, I said!
Esther.
You! Out!
Lea Lovitz.
Outside! Quickly!
Individuals were indeed shoved into boxcars as depicted in the novel. Hannah accurately describes the conditions of the boxcar travel. The boxcar traveled for 4 days and nights. The only difference that Hannah could tell was in the heat. Under the midday sun, it was like standing in an oven that smelled of human sweat and urine and feces. But at night, when it was cold, they were all grateful for the close quarters. The people deported often died from dehydration due to extreme temperatures and lack of food and water. They also had no sanitary way to relieve themselves, which explains the stench.
אני הגעתי פה ב-21 למרץ 1943, בשעה 2:30 בלילה. פה עמדו 2 אנשי אס-אס עם שוטים ו2 כלבים ופתחו את הקרונות והתחילו לצרוח ראוס! ראוס! ראוס, ראוס, מי יכול לרדת? בחור בן 20 כמו עובדיה, כל הצעירים קפצו, אמא שלי הייתה יכולה לקפוץ מפה, התחילו להרביץ להם עם משוטים, איזה מכות. ירדו, קפצו, שברו רגליים, ילדים נאבדו מההורים, התחילו לצעוק, אמא, מאמה, 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 אינה מאמה, מאבא. סידרו אותם חמישיות, אמהות עם ילדים לחוט, מבוגרים לחוט וצעירים לחוט, ודוקטור מנגלה בא, לוקח שורה אחת עם 2 אצבעות, לינקס רקס, לינקס רקס, לינקס רקס, ממיין את היהודים, באו 10 משאיות, וזה היה מסכנים האלה שעלו למשאיות, לא זכו לשתות לטיפה מים, ישר למשרפות. ו6 חיות אני לא שמעתי, לא ראיתי, אמא ואבא, משפחה מפוארת, ואף אחד לא נשאר.
After prisoners arrived at the camps, those that were not immediately sent to their death had their heads shaved in order to prevent typhus, which is spread by lice. Their hair was even sent to companies that would use the hair to make various products like cloth. Here is the barber, the soldier said. You will make a line for him, and he will do his job. There will be no noise. Remember, no hair, no lice. Another event that was authenticated in the book was the tattooing of numbers on the prisoners. You are J197241. Remember it. I can't remember anything, Hannah said, puzzled. This you must remember, for if you forget it, life is gone indeed. The tattooing pen burned her flesh, leaving a trail of blue numbers in her arm above her wrist. J197241. She didn't cry. The prisoners were tattooed with identification numbers in the concentration camps. However, there were exceptions. Ethnic Germans, re-education prisoners, police prisoners, and inmates selected for immediate extermination were not tattooed. None of the number series actually started with the letter J, and in reality, for Jew identification, they included an A and B series. The goal was to get through the whole alphabet with around 20,000 numbers per series. However, many Jews were killed immediately upon arrival at the camps and were never given tattoos. and some camps used other methods of numbering prisoners, such as necklaces with numbers or numbers stitched into clothing.
At one time, they came like some Germans, like a commission, you know, and they selected. And they made a very embarrassing scene. They made a wide circle with crayons, and every inmate had to walk in naked. Which, you know, every time when I talk, I go to schools and I share my experience. And I say, how did you make it? Where's your number? I didn't have a number, but I was in hell. So they made that circle, and one had to go right and one left. So me and my sister, we always stood in the back to see which way it's better. So we didn't stay one under the other. We made one in between, so we should turn out to be on the same side. And there we were given numbers. But the numbers were like necklaces, little metal numbers, necklaces. We were not tattooed. But the embarrassment. And if you had one little dot on your body, you were sent on the other side. We don't know which side was good or bad. But when we got the numbers, that the metal necklace, we know we are still going to live, we're still going to work. Have you got questions?
Who made the selections when
Germans.
they took it?
Germans.
But do you know who they were? Was it any?
Not at all. Young men with white gloves, beautiful saddists.
German officers.
German officers, sure.
Another historical event in the book that was accurately described was the selection for death, also known as the choosing. The first choosing had been the hardest, Hannah thought later. After that, it merely became part of the routine. And if you didn't stand too near the Greeks, or work too slowly, or say the wrong word, or speak too loudly, or annoy a guard, or threaten the Blokova, or stumble badly ill, or fall ill, the chances were that this time you wouldn't be chosen. This time. We know that prisoners were chosen for death, but was this really the criteria that their choosing consisted of? And the answer is yes. There were unofficial reasons for being chosen for death, such as saying the wrong thing or annoying a guard. However, a major criteria for the event of the choosing included age. The rule was that children below the age of 14 and the elderly were sent to die. This was authenticated in when Hannah's friend Ravika says, yes, Commandant Brewer is not supposed to allow children under 14 in the camp, so whenever he comes to inspect things, the children have to disappear.